There are moments so small, we almost overlook them. Yet it is those very moments that quietly turn the entire course of our lives. Not the crises, not the achievements, but those still seconds when we look within for the first time and realize something deeply true. Maybe it's the moment you see you've been living to please someone else, or when you sit in silence and suddenly feel you need nothing more to be at peace. If you're still enough to feel it, awake enough to face it, that moment opens a new door, a door that leads you back to your true self. And once you return, you realize happiness isn't found at the finish line. Wealth doesn't live in your bank account, but in the moment you start living authentically, wholly, and meaningfully. Moment 1. Stop running to begin walking in the right direction. Awakening from the unconscious race for success. He used to believe success means never stopping. Every morning, he rose before dawn and dove into work like a machine. KPIs, targets, deadlines, strategy. He ran non-stop. And the more he ran, the more he was praised for his ambition. His bank account grew each month, but his heart grew thin. One day, he sat alone in his director's chair. The room was silent. His eyes landed on a wall full of framed achievements, but inside, he felt empty. Then his gaze stopped at a dusty photo of his family. That was the first time he asked himself, "What am I building? A career or a glittering prison?" He sat still for a long time, and in that very moment, he awakened. From that day, he began to change. He didn't quit his job or abandon his dreams, but he stopped running. Instead of setting higher goals, he set truer ones. Instead of chasing achievement, he pursued depth. Instead of measuring by income, he measured by presence. Being there when his child needed him, being present with his breath, being present with his own inner rest. A few years later, he was still successful, but this time without depletion or compromise. He became richer and lighter because he had rebirthed himself in the moment he learned to stop. Awakening lesson. Not all motion is progress. Not all effort leads to happiness. Sometimes, the greatest turning point is when you stop chasing success and start living in alignment with your true self. Moment 2. When you look in the mirror and no longer recognize yourself, awakening from the roles we play to return to our true self. She was always praised as the ideal woman, polished, poised, smiling at the right time, in the right role. On the outside, she inspired others. On the inside, she lived like an actress afraid to leave the stage. Until one night, after a company party, she came home, removed her makeup, looked into the mirror, and froze. The face was familiar, but not real. She looked into her eyes and saw no light, only fatigue, emptiness, and a sense of being lost to herself. In that moment, she didn't cry. She simply whispered a truth she had never dared to speak. "I've lived for others for too long. I forgot what I live for." The next morning, she did something new. She declined a meeting done out of obligation. She sat with herself and wrote down what she truly wanted. She began meditating, even just 5 minutes, to reconnect with her body, which she once used only as a canvas. She didn't quit her job. She didn't renounce all roles. But little by little, she removed the mask with truth. And from that truth, she began to live again, cell by cell. She started a small circle where women were allowed to be imperfect, but deeply heard. She taught them not to succeed by society's standards, but to succeed in the art of being true to themselves. Her work remained steady, her income stable. But everything was different. She no longer feared losing others, because for the first time she had found herself. Moment 3. When pain is no longer an enemy, but becomes a guide. Awakening by no longer running from emotional wounds. He used to be the kind of man who never cried. He didn't allow himself to be weak. He didn't speak of loss. He never touched old wounds. He was considered successful. But inside, he was a fortress built on the denial of emotion. One evening during a silent retreat, a monk gently asked, "What are you avoiding in your heart?" He froze. Images of his mother, who passed when he was 12, flooded his mind. That day he had promised himself, "Don't cry, she's not coming back, be strong." And for the next 20 years, he lived by that, capable, cold, numb, alone. That very moment, he wept like a child. For the first time, he didn't fight his pain, he embraced it. From then on, he started journaling each morning, not to explain, but to gently touch his wounds. He joined a therapy group, not to fix himself, but to understand himself. He learned to open up, allowing softness, honesty, vulnerability. And strangely, when he stopped hiding his pain, others felt safer with him. That changed everything. He became a leader with depth, who listened instead of commanded. Clients came to him, not just for the product, but for the warmth of someone who had walked through darkness. He grew wealthier, but this time from the roots, without sacrificing his soul. Awakening lesson. The wounds you hide, when seen through compassion, become your greatest spiritual assets. True abundance and peace don't come from never hurting, but from no longer fearing pain. When you stop running, you begin returning. And in that moment, your destiny is reborn. Moment 4. When you let go of the one who hurt you and realize you've just embraced yourself. Awakening from emotional attachment to open the door of inner freedom. The awakening moment. She once loved a man for 7 years. He didn't abuse her. He didn't leave her. But he always made her feel not enough, not smart enough, not beautiful enough, not worthy of real love. She kept trying, making excuses for him, and each time he left her in silence. She looked for the fault in herself. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe I expect too much. Maybe all love is like this. Until one afternoon, after another cold phone call, she passed a mirror and saw her eyes had lost their light. She realized, the one who's hurt me most is no longer him. It's me, the one who kept clinging to a door that had long been closed. And in that moment, she let go. Not out of hatred, but because she loved herself enough not to endure any longer. From that day on, she practiced something simple yet difficult. She didn't text just to fill the emptiness. She didn't seek him when feeling lonely. She stopped apologizing for her feelings. Instead, she returned to caring for herself, the way she always should have. Morning walks in the sun, nightly letters to herself, written with kindness. Learning new skills weekly, not to fill the void, but to lay the foundation of a new life. Months later, she was no longer the same woman. Not cold, but resilient, radiant, and beautifully whole. Her career advanced. A personal project was born, where she helped other women who'd lost themselves in love to come home again. She no longer needed anyone to prove she was worthy, because she had proven it herself, by choosing herself. Awakening lesson. Forgiveness is not about forgetting someone. It's about stopping the pain you cause yourself because of them. Letting go is not losing. It's reclaiming. Reclaiming your peace, your worth, and your right to a life that doesn't beg for love. The moment you dare to walk away, not from someone else, but from the wounded self within you, that's when your new journey begins. A journey of wealth, because you are no longer dependent, and of joy, because you've returned to yourself. Moment 5, when you no longer need to prove, but simply need to live fully. Awakening from the pressure of becoming somebody. The awakening moment, he used to be a high achiever. He succeeded young, admired for having it all. Luxury car, grand house, perfect profile, powerful title. But the higher he climbed, the more unreal he felt. He smiled because he had to, spoke because he was expected to, lived to maintain an image, not to actually live. One day, while speaking to a group of children, a little girl asked him, "Are you happy? Do you get to do what you love?" He went silent. That question required no logic, no philosophy, only honesty. And for the first time in years, he couldn't answer. Because the truth was, he had lived to prove himself for too long, and never dared to live for his own joy. After that, he didn't quit everything, but he paused and began asking one question before every choice. Is this to prove something or to truly live? He trimmed projects that no longer sparked joy, stepped down from roles that only preserved his image. He returned to writing, something he once loved but had abandoned because it didn't make money. His raw, heartfelt writing online stood out amidst a sea of standard success stories. It touched those who were tired of running. And that authenticity made him truly seen without needing to perform. Revenue grew, but now he didn't count wealth by money, but by the freedom in each decision, and to him, that was the deepest form of abundance. Awakening lesson. You don't need to be someone to deserve happiness. Awakening doesn't mean giving up everything, but letting go of what is not truly you. When you stop living to prove, you start living to express not perfection, but wholeness. And when that happens, wealth flows in, not to fill a void, but to nourish a soul that is already full. Moment 6. When you accept your past as part of your soul, not a burden, awakening from denial to transform pain into power. The awakening moment. She used to hate her past, abandoned as a child. Her first love, broken. Her first startup, a humiliating failure. She entered life like a warrior, determined to rebuild everything, just so no one would ever mention what she'd been through. Success came, but the fear of being found out haunted her every night. Until one day, during a therapy session, the guide asked, "If you could go back, would you erase those wounds?" She was silent for a long time, then cried, "No, because without them, I wouldn't know who I am today." That was the first time in her life she embraced the past, no longer seeing it as shame. From then on, she began a powerful yet simple practice. No more denying what had happened. She rewrote her story through the eyes of a survivor, not a victim. She shared her journey to show others they could survive too. She started a blog telling her real story, something she once thought no one should know. Strangely, the more honest she was, the more people came. Not for advice, but for unjudged empathy. From her pain, she built a new career, a coach, a mental wellness guide, someone who walks with others as they navigate their own pasts. she became wealthy. But this time, not to prove she'd changed, but to nourish what was once thought lost. Awakening lesson. You don't need to erase your past to start over. You only need to see it with new eyes. Let it become a part of your soul, not a weight you carry. True wealth doesn't come from denying your former weakness, but from turning that weakness into tenderness for yourself and strength for the world. Breakthrough Moment 7. When you sit still and feel peaceful without needing anything at all. Awakening from the cycle of must-have, returning to inner fulfillment. The awakening moment he used to believe. To feel secure, he needed his own house. To feel at ease, he needed savings. To feel peaceful, he had to stop worrying. But the more he had, the more afraid he became. Afraid of losing, afraid of not having enough, afraid of being left behind. His mind was like a machine that never stopped spinning. One day, after long weeks of overwork, he collapsed from dizziness. The doctor ordered complete rest for a week. No work, no phone. The first day, he didn't know what to do. The second day, he cried from emptiness. On the third day, he sat still and simply breathed. No striving, no goals, no perfection. And then, it happened. For the first time, he felt peace, for no reason at all. He had nothing in his hands, but his heart felt full. From that moment on, he started a habit once considered a luxury. Sitting quietly for 15 minutes every morning, drinking tea without touching his phone, walking without headphones, eating slowly, and smiling at the person next to him. The simpler he lived, the deeper he became. The more still he was, the more creative he felt. His work didn't decline, his income didn't drop, but his joy returned. He launched a program called Mindful in Business, guiding entrepreneurs to slow down in a fast world. Clients didn't just buy his product, they came for the energy of someone who had lived fast and chosen to return. Awakening lesson. Peace does not arrive after you have everything. Peace comes when you stop and no longer demand life to make you feel enough. From the moment you sit still and feel okay, you'll realize you are no longer living to seek, you are living to experience. And that is the beginning of inner wealth and prosperity from within. Breakthrough Moment 8. When you realize just living is enough and everything good begins to flow. Awakening from endless wanting to flow with the rhythm of life. The awakening moment, she was always a planner. Promoted in 5 years. Buy a house in 3. Hit her monthly targets. Do something useful every week. She hated unproductive days. Felt guilty resting. Felt afraid when the next step was unclear. Then one day, everything unraveled. A major project collapsed. Her partner left. Everything halted. She sat on the balcony of her rented apartment, no more plans in hand. The breeze was gentle. Leaves fell. Sunset danced across a faded wall. And suddenly, she felt grateful. Grateful just to be alive. No need to prove. No need to achieve, just to be. That moment she laughed, softly like a child. Not because of accomplishment, but because, for once, she didn't have to try so hard to feel worthy. From that day, she stopped squeezing herself into rigid expectations. Instead, each morning she asked, "How can I live fully today?" Each failure she asked, "What am I learning here?" Each success, she didn't cling. She simply smiled and gave thanks. The more she let go, the brighter she shined. The lighter she became, the more opportunities found her. A publisher read her essay on unconditional wholeness and offered a book deal. She became a best-selling author, not by striving to be someone, but by no longer needing to be anyone, just being wholly herself. Awakening lesson. Happiness doesn't come from how much you have. It comes from the moment you stop asking, "Is this enough?" When you know that just being alive is reason enough for gratitude, you no longer chase success. You magnetize it with energy that is still, clear, and true. From that moment on, life no longer needs control. It becomes music you're invited to dance with. The final step of a journey home. You've just traveled through 8 moments. Perhaps they mirror your own story. Each pause, not a setback, but an awakening. Each letting go, not a loss, but a return to truth. And you know what? If you simply live each moment with presence, you've already begun your journey toward wealth and happiness, from the inside out. If these words touched you, leave a comment or share with someone. You never know. You might be the one to plant a seed of awakening in someone still lost in the dark. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to walk with us on this healing, soul-awakening path. Because each of us deserves a life of peace, abundance, and radiance. Right here, right now.